Listen, man, we write our story. Once again, my guy. Listen, as the viewers can see, we in a different location right here. Listen, man, I'm excited about this episode, man. This has been a long time coming. Very important episode to me, Tap. For a number of reasons, because we got some things we're going to talk about, but because of the gentleman sitting right here to my right, Mr. Darryl Hines, how you doing, brother?
The legend.
The legend.
Legend.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, my guy. I hope my wife don't watch this, but you didn't made me lucky a lot of nights. You didn't listen. Even when I was with my wife, you put me in position,
the right headspace.
Yes, you did.
Oh wait, I thought you were talking about with your wife.
Always.
Okay.
Always.
That part. That part.
But even prior to. And we're gonna go into a story later, but even prior to Tap, just
get out of there, Rock.
I ain't even get out of there. When I say lucky, I mean just going into a nightclub and having a good time. That's all I meant. I don't know what.
We knew exactly what you meant.
But Tap, do you remember? And I want to, Jay, can I talk? I mean, Darryl, can I talk for a second? Do you remember CIAA when it was in Charlotte?
Yeah. Wow.
From like 2013 to I think 2020. For the Velocity, what the place we're sitting in now.
Yep.
It was no doubt in my mind during CIAA where I was going to get fresh at. The only issue I had was who else had that shirt on.
But I will say, listen,
D, did Don buy this?
Yeah.
Tap seen this?
Yeah.
As a frequent buyer,
Absolutely.
I think I have a membership with Velocity.
We punch your car with
Right. One thing I like about Darryl is that he doesn't really stock a lot of the same clothes in a lot of different sizes. It's very limited, the sizes. So if you do see somebody in Charlotte with your stuff, it's probably only going to be like one or two people.
Absolutely.
That's if.
Right. If you see someone.
And that, just that excellence. But we're going to get into that. But I wanted to start, man. Darryl, I appreciate you being here. We'll introduce you formally in a little bit. But, man, Keegan, how you doing today, my guy?
I'm wonderful.
You got a shirt on right now.
Oh, wow.
You got a shirt on right now.
Velocity's finest. Yeah, statement shirt.
Definitely a statement shirt.
Question.
But, man, just thinking, and before we get started, Tap, can you lead us in a word of prayer?
Absolutely.
I want to get started, man. I always, before we truly get started, man, we want to make sure God gets the glory out of any conversation we have and make sure we put that first and foremost. Go ahead, my guy.
Father, thank you for this day that you've made. We will rejoice and will be glad in it. Thank you for these awesome men of God who are represented here. I pray during this podcast, I pray that lives will be touched, lives will be reached. I pray that iron sharpens iron during this time. And I pray most of all that you will be glorified. In Jesus' name, Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, I wanted to get you three together specifically in the same room when I had D on because I wanted to touch on the spirit of entrepreneurship. Not just entrepreneurship, but the spirit of it behind it. The what it takes. The whys. That day-to-day thing that keeps you going. And all three of you guys, relatively in your own rights, have been successful entrepreneurs, and you've, in your respective industries, been leading and been, pillars in what you do for your craft. All of you have respected your craft and your abilities. And I think you start there, Tap, when you're talking about being an entrepreneur. Do you respect the thing? See, you can love something but not respect it.
Right. That's good.
Am I right, Tap?
Absolutely.
But if you respect it, if you honor it, Keegan, how has, and I'll start with you, my guy. Everybody can answer this question because I want you guys, I want to hear your perspective tonight. So if I ask a question for one, I'm asking it for all because I want you guys in different industries. You had different experiences. Two of you from the wrong place. One of you from Baltimore. None of you from down south. I even hate to have y'all on because it's sending the wrong message. But Keegan, how do you start? And everybody can answer this question. How did you start by respecting your purpose, your profession, or your, I would say, how did you, when you begin your journey of entrepreneurship, you know, what were some guidelines? What were some things that were non-negotiables? What was the respect level you had for what you were doing, and why did you?
I think the first thing I realized was God answered a prayer.
That's good.
Right? And I prayed for some type of guidance on getting out of corporate America, because while it was great to me and great for me, I had outran my time there because I was becoming choked and being in that particular environment. So I prayed, and God answered the prayer with showing me where I should go next, you know, in terms of my entrepreneurial endeavors. And so when I first recognized that he blessed me with that thought, I had to activate and run on it. Now, I didn't run out there on Front Street too fast either. I took my time. I measured twice. I cut once.
Good.
I partnered with the right people to get me where I wanted to go. And the one thing I realized I had to do was, people don't realize you work harder as an entrepreneur than you do as an employee. And there's no disrespect or not anything means demeaning to anybody, but you work harder. And I had to really get my mind around, hey, this is no longer going to be just me going to a 9 to 5. This is going to be a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week. I got to put blood into that particular turnip to make that thing squeeze out something for me, you know. And so I had to respect that first and foremost.
And I want people to know this, but the caveat to you working harder is it's your time, though.
No doubt.
There's a significant difference when you own your time versus somebody else owning it.
Yeah.
Because you don't mind the hard work.
No. You don't mind the hard work, but you just got to know it's there.
Absolutely.
I think when you approach an entrepreneurial endeavor like you approach a job, that because you might ask yourself, I should be doing a little bit more, I should be making more money, or I should be having a lot more freedom than I actually have right now. What's going on? Am I doing something wrong? Now, when you have to build your own thing, it takes a lot of time. You got to be patient.
Absolutely.
You got to be patient.
And D, that's why, you know, I believe entrepreneurship is a calling.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Tap, it's a calling. And it took me a while to understand what you just said, Keegan. See, when you come out of corporate America, Keegan, I don't know how long you've been in corporate America. You ain't been in corporate America a while.
No.
You've been woke.
Never had a W2.
You've been woke.
Yeah, Sap never had a W2.
Original. Oh, wow. You the original.
Oh, wow.
We just waking up.
Oh, I see what type of time we on today. Okay.
But when you come out of corporate America, Keegan and Daryl, you can attest to this.
Yes.
You have this arrogance. You believe that, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
You don't, because see, in corporate America, everything is, the buffet is already laid out.
Yeah.
All you got to do is eat.
Yeah.
See, when you're an entrepreneur, you got to fix the food. You got to cook the food.
You got to shop for the food.
You got to
kill it.
Yeah.
Skin it.
skin it.
Wash it.
No question.
So you got to do everything. D, I think that builds the respect, D. When you started, D, did you see as an entrepreneur those blind spots? Because it really wasn't a you create the value system in your job.
Right.
You create everything that exists in your job. And that's a hard job. When you started, how did you navigate your way through ownership? Don't go too far now because we got to tell your story too. Back up. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
To answer the question, I agree that entrepreneurship is like most other vocations. It is a calling.
Come on.
Otherwise, you will find yourself forcing your way through your work days.
That's
and
good.
Trying to figure it out. So it has to be a calling there. And calling doesn't mean anything automatic.
That's
or
good.
Guaranteed. Calling means that God's going to meet you.
That's right.
That's good.
God's going to walk with you. So when you're called to anything, what's interesting about this is that I was called to ministry first. I'm not going to jump too far ahead in my story, but I was called to ministry first. So I became familiar with God giving me unusual tasks. Mm-hmm. And so when he says this, I always knew that I was going to be corporate. In my mind, I probably had another 5 to 9 years of corporate left before I wrote my ticket. I was doing very well. Life was good. then life changed. And now here I am faced with this calling, because literally, to your point of prayer, I was in a situation I had to pray my way through it. God whispered something in my mind that was ridiculous. And mind you, I'd only been in Charlotte 6 months. This is 2008 when this is happening. So when the thought of a sneaker boutique, there were two at the time that were, somewhat of a sneaker boutique. It was Black Sheep and Niche. Well, Niche no longer exists. Black Sheep has moved, but they're still around their skateboard shop. So I didn't have a model for that. So I have to rely on my training from corporate, all those seminars that they make you go to every couple of months.
All those
trainings.
It's all virtual and Zoom now, but you used to have to, go somewhere and sit there, for a whole day, act like you were awake and eat a ham sandwich at lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
So to turn around and say, okay, well, now here's my call. I was given this mission, because that's actually how I saw it. It's a mission, and I had never worked in a store before.
Wow.
I was no cashier. I wasn't a stock person. I wasn't a back person. I had never worked in a store before. And so what I did was I went around and I went to some sneaker boutiques that I saw in the magazine and kind of studied. And I would go to North Lake Mall, South Park, and Concord Mills, because I got laid off. Again, not to jump too much into too far ahead of the story.
You jumping right in there, I'm gonna tell dippy in that thing. I just can't go ahead.
So here we are in a situation where I'm given this assignment, but like you said, Keenan, measure twice, cut once. And so I spent a year prepping and planning, even down to the location. The specific location wasn't, they're gonna give me the keys. No, this was a strategic location. And things just began. Every step I took, it was very clear to me that God met me. It was very, very clear, because I tell people all the time. I said, you haven't lived until you've been in a situation where what you know and who you know can't help you.
Yes.
And that's what that goes back to what you talk about. God gave you a ridiculous vision, like Keegan. And because Tap, I got a specific question for you, but Keegan, like that's what God does sometimes. This is why it's a calling, because any entrepreneur, anybody, you've been given a vision so big that you know you can't handle it.
No question.
You understand when you get that vision, God, you bugging, son. You are tripping.
Yeah.
In fact, it scares you right into doing something complacent.
You try to run away from it.
Yeah.
You try your
Depending
best
on where
to run
you
away
are
from it.
with God.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah, because I happen to be in a more mature place with God at that time.
Gotcha.
But I've ran from some ridiculous stuff
In the past. Yeah, I have too.
And that's
I have
crazy.
too.
God will keep giving you opportunities. He'll keep setting his table before you. He'll keep doing that for you. But Tap, what I wanted to go to you was about, because we talked about this on one of the pods that didn't get aired, and it was a really good conversation. And I wanted to ask, and everybody can kind of weigh on this, because I never thought about it like this until you said it. What is the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who's self-employed?
Tap broke that down. Go ahead, Tap.
Yes, you did. Don't you start getting silent on me now, my guy.
You look that way. So I didn't know you were coming back to me. Okay. There is a big difference. A lot of people they try to intertwine the two, but it's really two separate things. So, in my career in barbering, I was probably self-employed for about maybe since 2000 to about 2014.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. I was self-employed. I was just worrying about myself, worrying about not working a 9 to 5, control my own revenue among myself. When you become an entrepreneur, it's no longer about yourself.
That's good.
It's about your team. It's about everybody else. It's about, making that dream, that big thing that you said that God sometimes lays on our lap, trying to navigate and listen to God, hearing the word of God, to be able to come up with your next moves. It's tough. The work is extra hard. If you thought that, I thought that I had to work really hard for myself. But once I became an owner, an entrepreneur, it was just it was like 4 or 5 times what I was doing on my own. It was long nights. You got to understand. I know Daryl, Keegan, y'all understand. Nobody's going to treat your business.
Oh no.
Like
No.
you're going to.
No.
I'm preaching to the choir.
Not
over
even
here. I already
half
know
bad.
I'm preaching
But
to the choir.
That scripture somewhere in some Bible. I'm telling you.
But that's what that goes back to the respect you have for your craft. That's the respect factor.
Yeah.
You'll move out of respect. You'll do work out of respect. You know, Darryl, the people that work for you, they like what you do. They like you, but they are never going to give the same reverence to your calling as you. And I think we get in trouble sometimes with that. Because think about it. You got people under you, but you're still working. Because you're establishing a culture.
Even bigger than that, I'm going to make it a little more simpler. It wasn't their vision.
Amen.
That's
My
good.
vision.
Amen.
So sometimes we get upset with people
That's good.
for not treating
That's
our
good.
vision like it's
Like it's
theirs.
theirs.
That's
Yep.
good.
Because truth of the matter, it's not their vision.
Yep.
Now you got to get people to, an effective leader, gets people to buy into the vision. But you can't be selfish because everyone has their own vision that God has given them. Some it may be under you, but some may be to do their own thing. And how would Daryl look if he had someone come under him and he's nurtured them and brought them up the ranks, and they say, "Look, Daryl, I got an idea. I want to, I kind of want to do my own thing." Sometimes you gotta let somebody fly. You
So
gotta
that-
let them.
You
have to.
great. I was going to transition to that too.
Something
Goodness.
You are.
My goodness. Daryl, some people take it, you just said it, I'm going to come back to YouTube tab, and everybody can answer this question. When somebody leave you, do you feel, and a lot of young entrepreneurs I'm a young entrepreneur, can get discouraged when you're left. You can start to feel like, well, was this God? And was it just me? You don't know the difference because because rejection now, when you're an entrepreneur, comes at a daily rate.
Rejection is costly too.
It is costly. It is costly.
Absolutely. Talk about that for me a second,
But
Darryl.
when
and
it
Keegan.
comes to me bringing in, I call my employees team members, teammates. When it comes to bringing someone in, and during the interview process, I said, if you don't want more, it's not the place for you.
Right.
Because you're not likely to have another experience where you can sit down with an owner, with an entrepreneur, have questions
Daryl.
about it,
That's good.
and then be empowered by that person. Because you have a lot of people that are driven by their egos and say, this is mine.
That's
I'm gonna
good.
walk around and show everybody it's mine.
Yep.
Even though I know they're not going to treat it like it's theirs. But, they're going to play that game. Well,
Correct.
I'm bringing you in and say, you're going to be a team member. But if you don't want more out of life, not more from me or more from my company, but more out of life, this is not the place for you. Yeah. Now, that sounds good. A lot of people say, oh, yeah, I want more. And occasionally you get somebody that says, man, it's just a paycheck for me. That's fine. If you show up and do what I pay you to do, we good. If you don't, we got to part ways. And I can pretty much tell you of the people that I've initiated the separation, 100% of them have come to me and said, first of all, we're all 100% good, and they all come to me and say, man, this is the best job I've ever had.
I have to use that. That is a good term. I need you to say that one more time. You said you initiated.
Well, initiate the separation.
That is good. That's good.
And Keegan, y'all can speak to this too as well, but as a business owner, that's a tough part about, being a business owner.
It is.
It's a cool Instagram post when you talk about separating from people, but the fact of the matter is you work with people every day. You develop relationships.
Absolutely.
You develop an affinity for people. You get to know them, and then you have to do what's best for your family if a situation ever arose.
Right.
Keegan, and a lot of people don't. And I know personal and business can get intertwined sometimes, but as a culture, we gotta understand that business isn't all the time personal.
Well, I have a saying that I'm friendly, but I'm not your friend.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, it costs nothing for me to say, hey, how you doing? You having a good day?
question.
How's your daughter? How's your wife? Whatever the scenario is. But we're not boys.
Yeah.
because I'm never going to get that line crossed to a point that if I have to, address something that, oh man, you tripping. We're not gonna have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's when the water gets
we're not
muddy.
gonna, but sometimes if you blur the line, that could, and then I try to,
It makes it difficult.
try to.
It creates major exposure.
Oh yeah. So which creates another situation where unless you're fortunate enough to be around other entrepreneurs, it can be a lonely situation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because you see hashtag boss, I'm a boss B, and all this stuff. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Because back to your question about self-employed or entrepreneurship, the true translation of entrepreneur is risk taker.
That's it.
That's
I like
good.
That. I like that.
So if the translation of entrepreneur is risk taker. So to be self-employed is to be employed yourself. That's awesome if you don't technically have a boss. But to be an entrepreneur, there's a level of vision and expansion.
That's good.
And you're taking people, neighborhoods, communities, zip codes with you. So it's a huge task that I think some people, young fella came in and he was kind of loud. And I don't really like when people are loud and coming in, I don't know you. And he just wanted to jump in. So what made you start? Start what?
Right.
You didn't say hi.
Yeah.
You didn't say, hey, man,
It's common
you just
decency.
jump in.
No pleasantries.
Yeah.
No
And then
pleasantries.
that's what I said. And I guess he got attitude, walked out. OGs never want to part no wisdom, left out. 30 seconds later, I said, I should have went after him and explained
That's
to
good,
him.
Daryl.
That's good, Darren. That's
good,
accountability
Daryl.
too.
Yeah.
That's accountability.
I should have went to him and
Absolutely.
explained it. However, and the reason why I didn't, because he wasn't that far gone, because guess what? These young people are sensitive. That's another topic.
Yes, they are.
So you go after somebody and he already in his mind feeling
Yeah,
rejected.
yeah.
Right.
That may not have been the moment.
Because you still was going to be truthful.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a lesson you just said, and for anybody who's listening, and that's a philosophy that I've adopted. Just because something is not your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility.
Right.
True.
You didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but you have wisdom. And God trusts you with wisdom. So in that situation, although he didn't exchange pleasantries, he didn't do what he should have done, you thought maybe I should go out there and do it. So it's always a responsibility to hand that baton on to the next culture and be that person for the next culture. But and I'll speak for the young people. We do got to know how to act.
Right.
There is a certain decorum you need to have for your OGs. Y'all can all attest that I respect everybody in this room. And that's what I'm sitting here today because I respect my OGs. I don't blur the lines.
Right.
Tap, you my OG. Daryl, you my OG. Keegan, you my OG. There's no blurred lines there.
Right.
There's no, we don't get those things crossed. If you talk, I listen.
Right.
Keegan, tell me your perspective on that, what we talked about.
Just now, as far as like OG versus little bros.
No, I'm talking about the respect for for entrepreneurship, and I want to go something where Daryl talked about being lonely.
Well,
that was good.
Yeah.
When he talked about when you got nobody to go to when you make a tough decision.
Yeah.
How can entrepreneurs, especially because you work in you work in the industry that right now is you do for self, but you do have people under you. How do you reconcile that loneliness that Daryl talked about? Even when you can't get to other entrepreneurs.
To that question, Steve.
Absolutely.
We talk about respecting entrepreneurship. I go back to what I said earlier about making sure I was around the right people. That's
good.
That's why I took my time to develop certain relationships because I knew it was going to be a lonely task. And I was blessed to have those people around me because of what I did before in corporate America. So that blessed me, right? Now, part of that challenge was they weren't like me. They were white people. Right, so it's a different experience. It really is. Not a bad one, it's a different one, right? And so they didn't understand some of my plight, so I had to make sure I got around the right people. And something that I remember we were talking about in the barbershop, we were talking about dads. Tab was like, man, I don't know no deadbeat dads, right? Because we purposefully surround ourselves with people who are good fathers.
Absolutely.
So as entrepreneurs, you surround yourself around people who are entrepreneurial, right? And so the same thing happened with me in that regard. So I was able not to be alone in certain situations that I was actually going through during my time. Now, did I make mistakes? Yes.
Absolutely.
They were some of the best learning curves I've ever had in my life. Those mistakes early on my entrepreneurial endeavors. Best learning curve I ever had in my life. Better than college to some degree.
Tap, when you work in the industry, Tap, that you could be a friend to somebody. you work in the barber industry where it may be a little bit easier to get the lines blurred in a barber.
Right.
That might be a little bit because you're working with some guys your age, people got your same interests, and then you couldn't hair, so y'all looking at each other all day and you're talking. So you develop something for that person. Right. So I can imagine, and you've probably had to let people go in your tenure as owner of Premier Barber Lounge. Listen, y'all go Premier Barber Lounge.
Which one?
Grooming Lounge.
Grooming Lounge.
Grooming Lounge.
Grooming Lounge. Let me get it right. Grooming Lounge.
I like it.
So that
It has a ring to it.
it does. Listen, this guy's been my barber for a minute now. I can't. If it was on Google, I'd probably give you about 3 stars. By 18 people, I'll be honest with y'all.
I can't get an appointment.
Hey, don't let your barber become your friend.
Years ago.
Man, when Tap first started cutting my hair, man, I was out here crispy. I was baking out here. You hear me? Crispy.
Yeah.
Where is this
That's why D
conversation?
couldn't get in. That's why D couldn't get in.
Man,
He went from self-employed to entrepreneur, and
that barber hit you with that. Hey, come on.
I prefer you guys talk behind my back. I don't like how it feels in here. Talk behind my back.
But when you the best barber in Charlotte, when you are extraordinary, like my guy, you got people lining up for you. But what I want to ask you, Tap, there had to be really, your personal feelings really had to come in when you had to make a tough decision for your business. And I don't think employees don't understand the weight of decisions that have to be made for the betterment of the business, because it's not just a business, it's a calling. So you got to protect it at all costs. I think people, and this is why I want to talk about the spirit of entrepreneurship, because the drive, what you're doing, D, is just not about money.
No.
It's just not about the money. Is when you build infrastructure, money comes. It's just the result of. It's a cause and effect. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Right. That's just the price of doing business. But it's much more than that. But Tap, tell me about, and D, I want to go back to you, and all y'all can answer this. What was it like for you? And how did you overcome making those tough decisions with people that you grown close to? Because obviously when you're smaller, you may grow, it's easier to get closer to people. How was that for you?
I think it's important to understand your position. First and foremost, I think the trouble that I got into before wasn't because I wasn't fully comfortable with my position being what it was. I was still stuck in barber mode where you're trying to be friendly with everyone. You're trying to be friends with everybody. You're trying to be cool. But, some decisions that you make, you have to make it for the best interest of the business. And once those lines start becoming blurred and people feel that, this Tap will understand because, that's my boy. And, you would never give someone that same leeway if you didn't know them.
That's good.
So that's how you know you're doing yourself a disservice in your business. If someone is working with you and if you didn't have that relationship with that person, the move would have been easier. That's when you know those lines are blurred. And it's important to understand because to a lot of my barbers, a lot of my students in the school, I serve a different role. It's more of a mentor. And, I can't go to all the functions with you. I have to have my own set of friends. I can't necessarily, it's not that I'm trying to alienate myself from you. It's just that I can't make myself too available. I can't make myself too comfortable, around you because I need you to respect me and my position.
Yeah.
In order for me to lead effectively without me having to second guess some decisions, because all those decisions sometimes can be tough to make. It's catastrophic to your business when you don't make those decisions.
That's absolutely.
They can be tough to make in light of friendship, but for your business, it can really set you back. And a lot of times in my business, I erred on the side of, helping other people out. And in the long run, it kind of set us back as a business. So now, going forward, over the years, we adopted a new, and I say we, I have a partner. We've adopted a new way to deal with, employees. It's just straight across the board. You know what I mean?
And that's infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And Keegan, y'all can wait on. Infrastructure is the lifeblood of any business. As an entrepreneur, building infrastructure, you can't. I had to learn this. You can't willy-nilly business.
No.
You can't motivate yourself into running a successful business.
No, that ain't a fake it till you make it. So.
No, absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely
not.
not. And
No.
Keegan hit the nail on the head. Like, they were very costly mistakes.
Yeah.
But you learned a lot.
You
learned a lot from those mistakes. They were costly mistakes that you had to learn from.
Yep.
You almost had to go through those things. So now, for the long haul, you know what position that you're in.
Exactly, because what you were saying was so true. Because not only does is it easier for you to initiate the separation,
Yes.
you would have also did it quicker.
Yes.
Good.
You wouldn't have sooner.
You wouldn't have let it
because
linger.
in my
That's
world,
good. That's good.
I waited too long
Yes.
to fire someone.
Yes.
And it cost me money.
It did.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because there was that. Listen, you get caught up in knowing their family. You get caught up in knowing their children. And a good wise person told me, once you start making someone else's kids more important than your own, because they don't care about hurting the balance sheet and the profit and loss compared to your children.
If Tim wasn't scratching his beard right now, I would give you a clap.
Right? And so that's why I said, to Tap's point, what I said earlier, there were some costly mistakes I made, and I was able to learn from them really, really good. Learning curve was really, really good for me in that regard.
D, that's a tough thing.
Yeah, I haven't had that issue. It's not a great moment when you have to separate with someone, but I came into it understanding that it's not something that I would let happen.
That's good.
So I was just fortunate in that regard. Made many other mistakes, just not not that one. So when it comes to someone where, with me, my protocol, my infrastructure is a conversation. If someone's repeatedly late, for instance, let's chat. Hey, sometimes I even lock the door. Let's sit down. What's going on? And they may tell you something. I don't deal with excuses, so you can't give me an excuse. But there could be something on your mind. There could be a reason.
Reasons, yeah.
Okay, let's see how we can mitigate that. And now it's on you. Now you've been put on notice. If it corrects, great. We move on. If it doesn't, remember that conversation we had, 2 weeks ago? Hey, listen. And what I did it so smooth last summer with somebody, they didn't know I fired them. They had to,
I hope they ain't watching.
They know they fired them.
They literally called me maybe an hour or so later when you said we should just be cool. Because this was someone that I was cool with and asked to join the team. I had space for him. Okay, fine. Took complete advantage of it. Took complete advantage of the relationship. Now, I ain't slow. So, hey, need you to be on time. Need you to stay here during your shift. Not, go do your running around while you're on my clock.
Yeah.
And when it came to a point where we had the conversation, and he said, "Oh yeah, bro, I got you, bro." Then
Bruh.
Right?
See?
All right, cool. Because now that's telling you how you see this relationship.
Bro, I got you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I actually invited him out to Starbucks. Hey, meet me at Starbucks. It was like a half hour before his shift or something like that. And I said, listen, man, I know you got a lot going on. Family's great, new baby, so on and so forth. But I think we'll be what I said. I'd not be cool. I said I think we'd be better off if we just maintain the big brother relationship. Oh yeah, that's cool.
He didn't know.
All right, man. I see you later. Left. And about an hour or so later, he was like,
"Well, shoot, I'm about to go to work."
Yeah. Because what's funny, he was supposed to be on. I said, so I'll see you later.
Right.
Honestly, that's what I said. I'll see you later. And I think he was like, he called about an hour or so later. He said, so when you say we'd be better off, just. I said, oh yeah, you don't work for me no more. I'm sorry,
like
perhaps I could have been more clear on that part, but I thought you understood what I was laying out. I was laying out your track record post the conversation you and I had about it, it didn't change. What's there to talk about?
Yeah.
Keegan, do we screen boss? It's hard to have that candor. Sometimes we've been employees so long, and we understand employee. Yeah. We speak employee as I would say as a culture, not because it's our fault, but I say we've ingratiated ourselves in corporate America. We've seen that as a standard. Go to college, get a great job. That's been the talk track. You're going to college, like ain't no other options. You know what I mean? So we've ingratiated ourselves in corporate America, and we've become employed, and we scream boss and want to be the boss, but those are the tough decisions you make. Like those are okay, you my bro. I know your situation. That's tough, Tap. I know you're struggling, but I don't think you want this enough. And sometimes letting somebody go from something isn't disabling them. It's just not enabling bad behavior.
That's true. That's true.
It is not. It is making them stronger, because I'm telling you, people survive. The first law of human nature.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's self-preservation. People will survive.
I never thought twice about it.
No.
People will survive. And I think stuff like that, he probably realized, oh, I got to get on my feet.
Right.
He probably made a few more mistakes, but I got to get on my feet. Tap.
And he went into survival mode.
Absolutely. And when you go into survival mode, and Tap, I think a lot of entrepreneurs can grow from that, Tap.
Yeah.
And learning that, like, you can make the best decision for your business, because long haul, because see, the tough decisions create better things for you. Sustainability for your business. It creates a standard in your business. It creates a culture in your business. They say that if he asks, well, you're D, Tab, and Keegan, you got to come to work on time.
Right.
It's
a phrase, necessity is the mother of all invention. Right? So when you are faced with, I got to make this thing happen, you go out and you make it happen. Right. You do. Because you got to put food in the pantry. You got to pay the rent and the mortgage. There's no more excuses. You can give me an excuse. You can't give the missus an excuse.
That's facts.
You can't give your kids an excuse.
No.
Absolutely.
They don't care. They need food in the pantry.
That's it.
Right? So, as they say, necessity is the mother of all invention. You'll figure it out when you have to. You really will.
And see, I'm not a boss. I understand that's a nickname.
Yeah, right.
I'm
Absolutely.
a leader.
Yes.
That's good. Break that down.
Yes.
So I like to think that I train my team to lead and to follow. You can walk into my main shop at any point in time. You're going to see me loading and unloading boxes.
I can verify that.
Inventory, as well as trying to establish rapport with our clients, because they're not customers to me, they're clients.
It's good.
We're stylists. So the term boss, I mean, it's not an issue. I don't make a big deal out of it, but when I kind of chuckle when I look at, you see the hashtags, or, or you see a T-shirt, boss lady, boss, which is cool. I mean, it's cute. But to be a leader is really effectively what I'm about. Because, again, going back to what I originally said, if you don't want more out of life, whether you want to become a photographer, a barber, a mason, it doesn't matter. Working with me, you will learn, because you get 2 degrees and 15 years of corporate experience, and I'm paying you to get it.
No question. Yep.
I'm paying you to give you all that comes with me.
That's good.
And most of my team, they get it. They appreciate it. And of course, there've been some that just had too much. Their lives were too loud at the moment to hear my message.
That's good.
And before we get into the story, because I want to go on this topic, and Keegan, you kind of touched on it yesterday. I was like, man, he don't even know that he touched on it. That I saved it and I had it in my notes. And Stephen Covey is one of my favorite authors. And I've read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People a few times. And it's really been one of my staples. And I've drawn from that book for a long time, because it's practical, but it's effective. And you talked about begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
That is so critical in vision. Begin with the end in mind. It doesn't mean you go right to the end. It just said you begin saying, okay, this is what I want.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I want. Or we can take it, let's humble ourselves and say, this is what God has for me. because he'll walk you straight through that.
Yeah.
And you said it yesterday, Keegan, during our meeting, begin with the end in mind. And I want everybody to, you know, before we get into Daryl's story, kind of give me their perspective on that analogy or that saying. What does that mean to you, Keegan?
Well, because I got it from the book as well, but I also saw it throughout my career. And it's about setting up your North Star, right? Knowing exactly where you're going and keeping your compass on that particular star. And you build your plan to get there. So what we're talking about today is for today's things, but I also got a plan for tomorrow and next week and 3 years from now so I can get to that particular point. And then hopefully when I get there, the phrase should be, I'm concluding the reason why I started.
That's good.
That should be the answer you have when you get to your particular point. Because if you have not accomplished that, you miss something along the way.
Process. The process is real.
Yes.
And I think a reason I said beginning to end of mind, but there's a middle. There's a B to Y. You know, we talk about A to Z, but B to Y is probably Y is the reason why you get to Z.
Yeah.
And when you get to B, so B to Y is extremely important when you're dealing with process, because nobody want to talk about that in between.
Yeah.
You know, when you see the vision, D, when you God gonna do it, you get the prophecy from the pastor or people walk up and tell you God about to do this for you, and that's all well and good. That has its place, but when Tuesday about 6:30 come, that person ain't doing this. They ready to walk out tap. You ain't got no clients. Right. Nobody likes your stuff that much. See, that's the reality of it. The dream is good, but the reality comes. What strengthened thee during your process when you talk about how do people power through that tap? You can answer that question too. How do people power through that process? Because that middle part, man, that is where people go to die. In that part, if you ain't really ready for it.
For me, I had to be vulnerable with God.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
You know, which as men, black men especially, you know, vulnerability ain't something that we practice. You know, we're not very familiar with that in every aspect.
Talking to Mike.
So to say, you know, I'm gonna be vulnerable with God, I mean, it sounds nice, a thought to say, but again, my story, because of how I got there, I had no choice. It was a back against the wall scenario. I can't emphasize enough that I'm in an unfamiliar territory with a very new concept for the market at the time. You know, so because I was laid off, you know, from a career, because I was in a new city, no relatives, no family, just a handful of neighbors and fraternity brothers, you know, it got to a situation where, okay, my God, what am I going to do? And God gave me the vision. I had no choice but to follow those footsteps. I had no choice. You know, and you talk about being vulnerable. So interesting is that I got to a point a good year and a half into, owning the shop where my plan, it wasn't as if the plan failed, but the resources dried up because of some personal situations that I was also going through. And I remember my pastor in Baltimore, Bishop Walter Scott Thomas, saying, you can be upset with God. And so I remember locking that door of the shop at university and sitting on the bench, and I talked to God like it was that uncle that stole my bus fare to get to work, so he could get high. I said, God,
give him smoke.
I'm not out in the streets. I'm not doing all the things that I could be doing. Some of my peers are doing, and here I am with $2 in my pocket. I don't get it. And that little conversation lasted 5 or 10 minutes. And I said, okay, I had my moment, you know, and my little 10-minute pity party, unlocked the door, and listen. From that moment on, there was small, incremental, progressive steps. And so the phone rings. It was Nike. Nike says, we need you to pay $5,000 before we can send you new merchandise. Well, in my business, you need the new merchandise to sell the old. If you ain't got the new, you're not getting traffic for people to come check out the old stuff. All right, fine. And I'm sitting here like, I don't have $5,000. I had it, you know, but I used it getting to this day. And I sat there and thought, this was like 2 months after I had this conversation with God. I thought to myself, I said, man, and I'm a stasher. Maybe I stashed something in one of my old IRA accounts. Could be a few bucks there, because I'm thinking I gotta bail out. I'm thinking it might be a few $100s so I can just have enough money till I get hired at the post office or something. I log on to Fidelity. It's crazy that I even knew the password. You know how you got so many different passwords and whatever. Crazy I even knew the password. Log in. Nike said they needed $5,000. It's $15,000 in my account. Now, I ain't that much of a stasher. So I do the transaction history in November, which is when I had the conversation with God. My former employer had decided, I'm just fast forwarding the story, had decided to give me the vested part of my 401k that I had forfeited when I went to the job that laid me out.
They don't do that either.
No.
They don't do that either. Oh, no.
No. You leave before your 2 or 3 years is up.
Absolutely.
Thank you for what you did for that time, but you're not,
There's a reason why there's a vesting schedule.
Right.
They don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. There's a reason why they do it.
And so even though the 401k that I contributed was substantial, their part was vested. And I left before my vesting schedule was up. Yep. And so I knew that because I was going to what I thought was big.
So you had no expectation?
I had zero expectation. I'm thinking I might see a few dollars because I didn't close the account. A few dollars might be sitting in there because, like I said, I'm about ready to go apply to Home Depot. And I see not 5 but 15.
That's good.
And I looked at the date, and I even called the 800 number. And she said, "Oh yeah, they put me on the
to make sure, right?
Oh yeah, because I'm in finance, so I know that there's such a thing as being dropped in the wrong account.
Yeah.
Like
just making sure, like
you can go ahead and withdraw if you want to.
Sir,
they
those
coming
dollars
at
you guys
you.
got to give those
Yes,
back.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I went and I went and withdrew the money, paid Nike what they needed, got flowing, and honest to goodness, we never looked back. And then the best part about that is I turned that $10,000 because I left it in there, started playing with some different investments. I turned that $10,000 into $119 in about 6 years.
Wow.
That's a clap at 10-1 looking at me. but and
You got to be vulnerable with God. That's the long answer.
Absolutely. And Job was vulnerable with God too as well.
Yes.
And in that conversation, you probably didn't disclose everything, but who told? Listen, I created the earth, and God puts you in perspective when you have conversation. He'll let you vent, but then he'll let you know I'm eternal.
That's good.
He will give you. He will let, and that's come boldly to the throne of grace, right, Tap? Mm-hmm. You can do that, but then God gonna tell you here's the misstep. Here's what I am. Right. You can come to Keegan. You can come to me complaining. But I'm gonna point you right back to the place where you should have been. Our righteousness is like a filthy rag. You said, God, Darren, watch this, do this. And here's the most important thing. I'm already working out for you, bro.
It had already been
right.
You
bugging. Go ahead.
But a man of faith would rather complain with God than complain with his boy about God.
Come on, that's good.
That's what he did.
That's good.
That's good, Keith.
That's what he did.
Tap. And then before we get to the story, this is good. I'm gonna be honest with you. We watching LeBron on the TV. They ain't want to talk about that. I ain't gonna bring LeBron up because I'm not supposed to bring LeBron up. Because if I bring LeBron up, Tap's gonna get so upset with me.
This is a Hall of Fame portfolio, man.
I just do it to piss Tap and Keegan off because I know.
I know that this is not Daryl. Daryl didn't put this on.
No, I didn't do that. I wouldn't have done this.
Daryl absolutely put it on.
It might be an employee that, look, Daryl might have to have one of those Starbucks talks with him.
You're not on
We're just
team
boys
no
right now. Listen, Daryl, listen, Daryl, I wouldn't have got that one.
You said see you later.
Yeah, I was like, shoot, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A, maybe Wendy's.
Right. I'm going to be there early.
But you know what, Daryl, your message was spiritual because he got it later.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, bro, I'm fired.
Absolutely.
But Tap, beginning with the end in mind, and before we get to the story, Tap, you along the journey, Tap, well, let me ask you this question. You can answer it personally or not. What was your bang moment? What was your moment that this is the obstacle that if I get over this, like he talked about, if I can get past your red, I call it your Red Sea. Mm-hmm. if you can get what was your Red Sea moment, Tap, where it was either it's over with Home Depot,
Right.
it's back to work. I don't want to go to and we gotta. That's reality sometimes. Right. We got to deal with our decisions too as well. But you know, you get to a Red Sea moment and say, "Hey, bro, this looking shaky." How were you able to, you know, take that extra step and trust God through that?
I think for me, the part of trusting God, it came in the beginning. For me, Good. It wasn't during the process. I went to college in Greensboro, graduated with a degree in criminal justice. So I wanted to go into, actually wanted to be an FBI agent. Right?
Come on, Tap.
Hey, that's what I wanted to do, right? But I felt like I went to school for my mom. I wanted to make my mom proud. But that wasn't really what I was doing.
Does that speak bigger to college?
Excuse me?
Does that speak bigger to college?
Yeah, I mean, just my mom worked really hard, so I wanted to make her proud.
That's good.
I wanted to make her proud of me. I wanted her to feel like the sacrifices that she made for me paid off. But as, you know, life gets in the way sometimes. So in college, I picked up cutting hair and actually got pretty good at it. And I remember going to church after I graduated, and I was debating on, you know, getting a job with juvenile justice probation and parole. I was debating on getting a job, and I heard the pastor say, he talked about the will of God for your life. And he said, the will of God for your life is pretty much anything that you love to do, and in fact, you would do it for free if you could afford to. And I thought to myself, I was like, what do I love that much that I would do it for free if I could? And it was cutting hair. After that, I knew God spoke directly to me in that message. That is one of the crystal clearest that I've heard God. And after that, I went to barber school.
Wow.
And the rest was history. I never looked back. I didn't have a problem with trusting God with the faith level because the clients, they just came. They just came. I worked hard. I worked diligently, but the clients came.
And we got to understand that faith is always different.
Mm-hmm.
Faith levels are different.
Absolutely.
Some people start at, you know, because sometimes people fall at the beginning. Right. Sometimes people fall at the middle. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people fall stumbling at the end because they're too prideful. They won't change it. Absolutely. They won't change before they have to.
Yeah.
You know, and entrepreneurship is not monolithic. It's so many layers to this. We could probably talk all night. I don't want to interrupt Daryl's story, but we could probably talk all night about just how many layers there are to entrepreneurship, how many different emotions that you experience as an entrepreneur, Keegan, how many different times you have to adjust. Entrepreneurship and owning is about adjustments.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not always, it's about what the defender does, and the defender is life. They're your consumers.
They're your absolutes.
There's the market.
They
change. Yeah. You know, you think you got a bead on the market, Daryl. You think, okay, they like this. And then boom, it shifts this way. Yep. Keegan, you think, okay, the financial industry, this is how it goes historically, and boom, this happens. Yep. Tap, you like the barber industry, we doing this is the innovative thing, then boom, it shifts. Right. So there's so many, and even in media, even in what we see now, you used to have to go to Hollywood to go get a contract, but now I'm streaming a live show on YouTube, and I'm not paying a Hollywood exec, I'm paying my goddamn Jones.
Yeah, look at God.
Shots by Jones. But listen, that was pretty. I'm gonna be honest with you. I like that.
I like these lights.
I like that.
I like these lights. I like the
Tim
lights.
Jones, shot by Jones.
Look at God.
Appreciate your people. That's another part of entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all have different levels of it. You have 1099s, you have W-2s, and we have different levels of people we treat. But leadership, you talked about leadership a little bit, Darryl. That is important when it comes to managers and leaders are not the same. Right. Managers operates processes and procedures. Leaders lead people. Right. They make people feel empowered to do those things that you don't have the capability of doing. But Keegan, before we get to Daryl's story, it led me to something. Entrepreneurs take a lot out of themselves because they stay managers, not leaders. They fall in love with the nostalgia of their business instead of what God said the business should be. And they'll go in a little bit of your story, how you expanded. But that's people, I want it all. I want to do it all. I want to do it all. I want to do it all. I got to do it all. I got to be on top of everything. But delegation is an important part of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
putting people in. Talk about that a little bit, Keegan, before we go to Daryl's story.
Well, I think, you got to wear both hats as a manager and a leader, depending on what you're doing.
That's good, yeah.
And because you have to manage protocols, resources, things of that nature, but you don't manage people, you lead people. And where leadership comes, but you're talking about empowerment, encouragement. I always look at it as a servant leader, I got to move things out of your way so you can run harder and faster for me in the business, right? So if I can help you run harder and faster, it's going to help my business. So, yeah, I'm in a servant role as a leader. So that word boss, I've never adopted that particular. I've never adopted, because boss is about the individual. Leader is about the individual that you're actually trying to empower to work harder and faster. If I'm going to ask of you, let me help you get that stuff off your plate so you can run harder and faster for me. Yeah, so, but you do have to be a manager in terms of managing protocols, managing resources, leveraging the right vendors in the proper way. That's management.
And leadership and management is up under the banner of leadership. It's a part of leadership, but it's not the whole.
No, it's not the whole.
It's not the whole. It's a part of the structure. And I think when we understand that, I think we've got the do as I say, not as I do. We've adopted that model.
And I wish Keegan would have touched on the point that me and him always talks. He talks to me about it too.
Y'all special something about God? Hold on for a second. I thought, hold on now. What about y'all talking? Y'all talking secretly?
You're not in every room.
You get your time when you're in my chat.
In every room,
you get your
bro.
time too.
Chill.
Hold on, man. These are blurred lines right now. Go ahead.
Nah, but seriously, one thing that has always stuck with me, that Keegan has said to me, was it's important to make sure you're working on your business instead of working in your business.
Yes.
That's good. Say it again.
That's the leadership part.
Say it again.
It's important that you're working on your business as opposed to working in your business.
Yep.
And both can be true, but you gotta make a priority of one of them.
Yeah.
But you working in your business could be working on it. Right.
Absolutely.
But make sure it's not just you working in your business.
No question.
Make sure that you are working on it.
Yeah.
Like if you, just like you said, if you had to help somebody out, you have to show them something by doing it yourself, you can do that.
Yes.
But not just stay there in that position.
Stay in that moment.
Right.
Because even setting the example, the one thing that we know about Tap, he's been cutting my hair since 2000. So I moved back 2010, so over a decade. Wow. He is typically the first one there and the last one to leave.
Absolutely.
On a daily basis, Tap blocks and tackles better than anyone in the business.
No question.
Right? And so when you set that tone, they know what they're walking into, so that when you need to work on the business, they know how to work in the business. Case for the example.
And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a hard worker. I can put in that work. I tested myself. I can work. You rival me, my boy. Your work ethic is different. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll be like, this Negro working.
But hey, Steve,
Daryl, you work. Keegan, you work. And that's the common theme with all three of y'all. Go ahead.
But I from one thing too. So I was at the university store for Velocity earlier this afternoon when I left the office. And D was in there showing an employee how to put things in a row for the purposes of inventorying the actual product.
Wow.
Like
that's
that's how you build
what
a
I see
team.
when I go in there, right?
That's how you build
I
a
see
team.
that too.
And D's been doing those, like, and that's, I think that's how we develop a personal relationship, kind of transitions to his story. That's how we develop. You know, I'll say when I first met D in 2000, I think 12, 13, something like that. Right. When I first, I discovered Velocity, Tap put me onto it. Man, you've been putting me onto a lot. Well, OG. But when I think about going in there, D, and I met D, we would talk and I would listen to him and hear his wisdom, and it intrigued me because it wasn't just somebody trying to get money. He invited you in. That's rare. Black, white, all across any culture, somebody to be personable who doesn't have to be. He could take the mantra. That's why I believe him. You can believe him when he say he ain't never took on I'm the boss. Right. He's on the floor working. He doesn't. Normally, you don't see the owner in stores. You can go across Concord Mills. You can go across any shopping center. You probably won't see the owner. You'll see the manager or the person running the store or running all the store, but you don't normally see the owner cutting hair. You don't see the owner selling insurance or selling high fashion. You don't see that normally, D. But when I met this guy, that's the spirit that attracted me to you, and I wanted to learn under you. And I'm telling you guys, this is why I wanted to have him on, because you don't just wake up and get out of bed and become strong-minded to be an entrepreneur. There's a story that's behind it.
Right. Wow.
There's something that drives you to not stop. It is. I'm telling you, this grind kicking, Daryl and Tap, it is built for you, not for everybody to get there. They didn't pave the road with gold of entrepreneurship. It is a bumpy road. Daryl, so let's start
for the
here.
week.
Let's start here, man. Let's go through your story, man. And I'm gonna let you talk, and I want to give the floor to you, man. What did you grow? You already said it. You grew up in Baltimore. Up north. Oh, you up north, guys. I'm just gonna keep saying that because I don't really like that I'm out. No, Tim from the South. He's from Raleigh. My bad, Tim. But what did you grow up at, Dean? Tell me about your childhood a little bit, man.
I'm one of the few people from Baltimore that lived in both West and East Baltimore. Most people.
What's the difference between those two?
Well, culture. We all talk funny.
Y'all do.
You get me around somebody from home, and it'll really come out. But honestly, it's just one street that divides east and west. Is not a big deal. But typically, because the city's so big, that you can find, if you're from the west side, you can find some place to live in the west side, and the same thing the east side. It just so happens, my mother made a decision that took me from west side to east side. But when I think back, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't know that's what it was called. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what it meant. I always hustled. So even from my candy days of buying a pack of Now Laters and selling them for 5 cents,
Now Laters was different.
It got good. And I wish I had the type of mother that could take me to a Sam's Club or BJ's to get the big pack, but I had to buy the
little 5-pack.
The little.
Then they were stuck together. You had to pull them open.
I worked
and they
it
got
out.
stuck in your wisdom tooth back here.
Right.
You know them Now Laters.
Wait, Daryl, did you sell them individually?
Yeah.
Oh, so you
Man, you
bust
was
the
a
pack.
real.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like that.
I spent 25 cents for the
Like
pack.
on Lucy's? Like on Lucy's?
You
you
are
selling Lucy.
You a born capitalist, bro. You selling Now Laters in the
I was reselling the pack because that's I couldn't
Okay.
But I would bust the pack and then selling. And what I'd be mad about when I knew you had the mystery mix, which was a popular flavor. The mystery mix was like a special edition analysis.
It was rare gold. It was rare gold.
So you got customers waiting for the mystery mix, and you get there and they don't have none. Like you don't know how to express your discontent to the establishment owner. Like, what do you mean I got to do grape or strawberry? Everybody got that.
Oh my God.
So
That's classic.
So when I look back, and I've always, and even when I became a little bit more of age and started getting my hands on the wrong things, it was still that hustling in me that, I'm getting to it. And when I discovered fast money, it was a gift and a curse because I'm intuitive and I'm discerning. I don't know these words at the time.
Right.
So I'm using words at my age, not words I would have used then.
Right.
But what was always present with me is the fact that I had this inside voice, which showed me different things. That, hey, you can keep doing this, and look what happened to so-and-so. Look what happened to so-and-so. So I found my way into college. Again, that was pioneering by itself because no one in my family that had gone. Put myself through college, worked full-time during the day, went to school full-time at night for 4.5 years to get a bachelor's degree. Came out, God bless me, straight into a corporate assignment in a bank, hustled that. So I actually turned, if you go into a bank branch right now, you're going to see the tellers over here and they call the desk side over here. They take care of accounts and loans or whatever. I was over there. At the same time that banks were transitioning from just doing checking and savings accounts to selling investment accounts, annuities, mutual funds and such, which is really what I wanted to do, but I couldn't afford to become a stockbroker and work my way up. I needed a salary, cause I had a lifestyle or whatever. So I turned that side and those licenses that they gave me, and I started hustling that, and just had a knack for developing relationships. So before you know it, I'm being tapped on the shoulder to go into this credit training program. We think credit training program, we think they teach you how to get credit cards. No, it was underwriting for businesses, for commercial lending. Oh, okay, so I mean, it's 63 candidates and they chose 6, and I was one of 6.
Wow.
So I go into this program a year and a half long, and then my first assignment out of that program was international maritime. I'm a guy from East Baltimore.
Yeah.
Okay?
Most of us
I
don't
know what
what that is.
international means.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. If I say I don't know what it is, y'all think I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Listen. No, you wouldn't be the only person.
Only reason why I know is because I insure stuff like
Yeah,
that.
'cause-
That's the only reason why I know.
Listen.
Go ahead and tell me what it is.
You would not be the only person because I didn't know this existed. International maritime is ship financing.
Okay.
So when you go to any port city, we love Miami. If you look off the beach, you're going to see a bunch of ships. If you go to pretty much any now, not cruise ships, even though categorically, they're the same. I'm talking about tankers,
distribution,
reefers, refrigerator ships.
Right. Whoa.
Yeah. The various different types of ships that had, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 deadweight tons. We're talking about skyscrapers that float.
Yeah. Wow.
Here I am, 26 years old, and that's my job.
Yeah.
I actually go to the main headquarter building on Charles Street every day, suit and tie, briefcase, trench coat, because I had to do that thing. Right?
Of course you
did. I had to do.
Yep.
And this is my job. And trust me, it blew my mind every day. And so late 90s, there was something called the Asian flu. Every 8 to 10 years, there's a recession. So I'm not going to give you an economics lesson, and so this just happened to be that cycle that started overseas, which put the portfolio of my division in jeopardy. All of a sudden, we go from going on major trips, all expenses paid, to now we got to report to the CEO and chairman of the bank every Wednesday. I'm 27 years old, and I get to go. I mean, you're talking about an experience. You go into this room, mahogany desk, the stuff you see on TV, and I have a place here.
Wow.
Little do I know that, fast forward a little bit of time goes by, and they end up dissolving the portfolio, dissolving the division. But some of the other big wigs that were in the meeting had took notice to me. Now, I'm clueless because I'm still not adapted to this corporate scenario.
Yeah.
This ain't really my lane, my language. Like, I'm 3 years into this whole experience. Not, so I got a lot more East Baltimore in me than I got this. Yeah. But I knew just to be quiet.
Right.
You just shut up, nobody knows.
Absolutely.
Right? Get tapped on the shoulder for promotion, 'cause I'm thinking I'm gonna be on the street, fine. And then in the midst of taking that promotion, GE Capital called. GE Capital is the finance arm of General Electric. 29 years old, I'm a VP at General Electric. Mind blowing. Because look at the responsibility, look at the title, look at the compensation, so on and so forth. So all of a sudden, seven years or so, I'm in GE Capital. Decided to go to another company that threw a lot of money at me. Fine, did that for a few years, and all of a sudden, I'm feeling myself because I'm one of very, very, very few men of color in this particular industry. So it became portfolio lending, which basically I would buy portfolios from banks. Banks will lend money to us, and then they'll group them together and sell them to someone that wants to hold it so that they can originate new money, new loans.
Gotcha.
So I would buy the pool of it. I literally went to L.A. for a lunch meeting one time. I flew all the way to Los Angeles, spoke for about, it was supposed to have been scheduled for 20 minutes, ended up being like 40, 45 minutes, but that's all I went for. So another company wanted me to start their portfolio lending division. By this time I moved to Charlotte. Great. Now I get to write my ticket. I literally wrote a number down, that thing you hear stories about. You write a number down and, you took that?
Did you shoot yourself too low?
Oh my God. You took that?
Right.
And 59 days to the day, I get laid off because that was the beginning of the 2008 crisis.
Ooh, I was just coming out of college. I remember that.
So here I am, family at the time, got stuck with the Maryland house, had just bought the Charlotte house. I had two $3,000 a month mortgages.
They couldn't move either one.
$6,000.
Couldn't move either one.
A month, plus utilities in both of them, plus 2 growing kids, so on and so forth. So that was what I referred to earlier with back against the wall scenario. Mm-hmm. So here I am in a situation where, mind you, I'm in a brand new city. Okay, I was home office, so I didn't even have like a social network, and here I am unemployed. First thought is go back home, but I don't want to uproot my children again. They had been there several months as well. And so I did what I had been trained to do, was you take it to prayer. And, I don't think a day or two goes by. And one of the things, just a side note, whenever you pray, be quiet. You can petition God. Save some space for God to respond.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yes.
Don't just say, God, give me, God, I need. Amen. Yeah. So, but anyway, so, in my meditation period, I prayed, and God whispers, sneaker boutique. And I thought, again, ridiculous. I just finished my master's at Howard. I just finished, literally in December. This is March, April of 2008. I just finished my master's at Howard. To me, I'm thinking I can go further into my career, just wait on it. I'm not thinking double it all down for something you've never done and don't even know that it exists. Again, God's voice can be ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And so, I was at a point where, what do I have to lose?
Right.
I mean, a lot of money, of course, but
that'll be one thing.
At the same time, if I don't do anything, that money's going to disappear anyway. Given the scenario that I'm in. Mm-hmm. So, I started, going around, making phone calls, visiting different shops, visiting malls, and just taking a look at things. And then I originally incorporated as Be More Sneaker Boutique. That was the original name that I filed with the state of North Carolina. And it didn't sit right with me because I'm not in Be More. I'm not there, and I don't want there to be a territorial situation. Up north guys. I didn't want that.
Steve.
Like I've been alluding to all day.
Exactly
I'm just being honest with you. I've been alluding to it all podcast. Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
And so, it just didn't sit right with me. I sent in the paperwork, and one night I went to lay my head, and I literally did the bounce off velocity.
Wow.
And I'm the type of person, Keegan, it sounds like you're the same way, the way you got to research it. Yeah. You don't just start doing something because. So I looked it up because I just basically thought velocity meant speed. But it really means speed in which it changes direction. Mm-hmm. Well, that's
Hold
great.
on. Say it again.
Velocity means the speed in which something changes direction.
Torque and force. Yep.
That's
right.
good.
So if you say velocity, you just think
that's good.
Fast. But technically, it means speed in which something changes direction, which is fashion.
That's good.
Right? There you go. So I, send the addendum in. That part was done, a week or two. And then it began really formulating what it is because, again, I was a great customer. I never got employee salesperson of the year in retail. Mm-hmm. So I went around, like I said, I started observing, went to some shops in other cities, and I took a little piece of each of them and created Velocity in University. What's interesting is that between 2008 and 2009, when I opened in 2009, the vision was always 7 locations. Not just because it was the number of completion. I didn't see it that way. That was just what God gave me. So remember I said the story about going broke 2 years in. Now, of course, I ain't seen no 7 locations from that point. Mm-hmm. I'm literally thinking I'm about ready to get a job again. But I hung in there after that story where I discovered the money, things started going fine. And so people would come into the shop over the years and they would think, is this a chain? Nah, it's just this one.
Wow.
Really? I mean, isn't there another one? I don't think so.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, And then years would go by. How long you been here? 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. And around the 10th year is when I finally figured out what Velocity was going to be and what it could be. Then I could duplicate it. For the first 10 years, I'm really figuring things out.
That's good.
So it was a process of 10 years.
That's good.
Yeah.
You had to sit in the singular purpose that God had for you for 10 years.
Process.
That is a long time.
Steve, that sounds like wilderness.
Man.
I was going to make a reference to that because here's the thing. The time that the Egyptians, the Israel, that they spent in the wilderness, God had to make sure he could trust them with answered prayer. So no matter if it's 10 years, 40 years, 52 weeks, whatever it is, if I'm going to give you that, I got to know you're going to be faithful and obedient with it.
And D, one thing about the wilderness was you were also outside of bondage.
Yeah.
While you was in wilderness. You just had to wait for the next step.
That's good.
Yeah, you had to wait for the next step.
Tap, that's good. Man, that's good, D.
Yeah. So the question became, can God trust you with answered prayer? Mm-hmm. Because
because there's a responsibility in the harvest.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Tap.
It is.
Now, even just having this conversation,
Right.
Tap. Now that you're going to barbershops, a school, when you just had a couple of employees or 1099 guys, you can manage that. Now it's always something. D. It's always something, Keegan. It ain't never nothing. Now you got the harvest. Now you're busy all the time. Now you can't, your eyeballs is popping out of your head now. Now everything you asked for, because see what we didn't, the conversation's there now. You're broke, but you ain't broke now. You ain't broke now. There's something now, but see, people don't understand. There's a response to whom much is given.
Much is required. Absolutely.
See, yeah, Tap, you're reaping the benefits, Tap, but there's a responsibility. And now that responsibility looms large. Am I lying?
Absolutely.
Tell me about it a little bit, Tap.
Absolutely.
Tim, we got some time? Go ahead.
It's to recreate myself. That's the responsibility, to pour into others. I can only physically cut hair a certain amount of time. My responsibility is to bring the next generation of barbers up. And that's where I get that joy of when someone comes to my school and they don't even know how to turn a pair of clippers on. And then they leave school as a really good barber. Man. That's, finding joy and satisfaction in that. It's kind of like, as I became an adult, I never understood, but it's different. I never understood, why your parents would be more happy at Christmas time watching you open up gifts than them open up gifts themselves. So I became a parent myself. Wow. Then I saw the same thing.
Fulfillment. Yeah.
It's the same thing. I understand why. No, don't get me anything. I'm good. I just want to see you guys happy. And it's the same thing in the industry now. When I'm teaching someone, you know what I mean? It's not about me, but it's more about you, helping you get to where you need to be, being that leader,
And Keegan, I want to ask you a question too, and Darryl, you can answer this question for me. Because we talked about process. We talked about, beginning with the end in mind. But there is a process in between that. Mm-hmm. How do we manage expectation without dimming our vision, Keegan? How do you manage the expectations without losing the thing you first got from God? When he first gave you the Moses when he was at the bush, you know what I mean? When he seen it, when he was talking to God, he was right there, and you was all gung ho. You was like, yeah, I'm about to do this. But then process happened. How do you manage that without losing the excitement of the vision, Tap, the end all be all? Because Darryl, those Tuesdays, those Wednesdays where nobody's looking, where nobody cares, where you're not getting praise, where nobody's coming in to tell you how great you're doing, where you're just working, where there's an inventory issue, or you have to call one of your vendors, and everything's messed up. How do you still illuminate that vision, Keegan? How does that still ring true to you?
So I never actually thought about, when I managed my expectations, that it was dimming my vision. So that process you're talking about, for me, it's my admin Fridays or my admin Mondays when I'm doing paperwork. I can't stand paperwork. I can't stand documentation. But I will tell you this, it saves my ass in court based on what I do for a living.
CYA.
Right? So I got to do that. And that's part of the overall, operation of my business as an insurance and financial professional, right? So I never thought about it as dimming my vision. It's part of getting me to my vision and getting me to my end goal and keeping me out of jail, or fined by the SEC or the Department of Insurance. So I never thought about it dimming my vision. It's part of me getting to my vision as far as that work. But to your point, that process, that grind you got to do, the day in and day out work in that regard, the blocking and tackling, it can become
monotonous,
but it can also become wearisome.
Drain.
Yeah.
It can drain you.
It
can drain you. And the one thing that you got to have as an entrepreneur or any kind of business owner, you have to own your mental days.
That's good.
That's it.
I didn't get that when I first got into this role. You got to own your mental days. You had to say, you know what, this Friday or this Tuesday, I'm checking out. I'm doing it before. I'm checking out, and no one can get to me. If you do not recharge, you will crack, and it's going to probably be at the worst time ever.
Absolutely.
And that's an important part of
You have to control your mental days.
Growing your business is taking time, understanding if you know the why is to create more time for yourself. You're not doing this to run yourself into the ground. Eventually you get older. Eventually your body wears out. You don't want to, you love the customers. I get it. I know. But at some point you're going to ride off into the sunset.
Oh, yeah.
Before you
got an extra strategy in mind.
Absolutely. So and those are the things you're working towards. And I can imagine that's why I begin with the end in mind. It's so incredibly important. And a lot of you guys have achieved success, but you know what success you want. And I think every entrepreneur should understand what is it that I want out of this venture that I'm doing? What is it that God gave me? What is it that I can have out of this thing that I'm doing right now that's going to make me successful? Daryl, how do we do that?
Well, for me, I had to be able to afford to take days because
Said it again, Daryl.
I had to be able to afford to take the days because
That's reality.
I had this thing for years that if I had the money, I didn't have the time because typically I had the money, when we were busy. Holidays, back to school.
Talk about it.
That's good.
Talk about it.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
So that's when I got the money to
Talk
go.
about it.
And then when I got the time, I ain't got the money because it was slow. And me being conservative, I'm not going to go out and blow the bag I just made from taxi because I don't know how long this slow season going to be.
That's it.
That's
Talk
good.
about it.
So I live a very balanced and consistent
That's
life.
it.
I find out what I like, I do it, and I stay, within a degree or two of that, and I'm good.
And you back at it.
And I'll just let anything accumulate and it meet me at the end. So that's the main thing for me. Now that I've been able, because I couldn't even afford a team. My kids were my team the first 2-3 years. That was their allowance came with them playing cashier on Saturdays, and they enjoyed it. I helped them. Put them in an environment where they enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
They liked the little paycheck and went on. But when I got to a point where I now need to be able to get away from the shop because I have to go to trade shows and things of that nature, then it became finding the right person, the right people, and then once I got good at that, it just became something to now I can expand based on the blueprint that it took me 9 or 10 years to develop.
Go ahead, Keegan.
Well, because I wanted to make a clarity, I couldn't afford it either. So when I say a mental day, that was me saying, okay, I'm going home and no one can call me. Right? Because, in my world, you work in 10, 11 hours a day and you work on Saturday mornings as well. And at some point in time, you are just your body. You will break down at some point in time. So I would tell every entrepreneur, I'm not talking about going on vacation. I'm talking about just escaping. Just escaping, staying in your room at the house. Mental days is one thing, but also you made a great point that we don't talk about a lot. An exit strategy. You have to build one in the beginning.
That's good.
It can change. It's okay.
Variations.
Yeah, but just know you need an exit strategy so that when it's time for you to either leave midstream or at the end of this run, one, you can leave taking out what you put in or then some, but two, you're passing it along to the person that you want to pass it along to as far as legacy goes. So exit strategy is very, very important.
And that's important before we even close out, but that's important. The whole point of this was tap to, how do we see? This is what I wanted to get to tonight with you, Dara. How do we transfer leadership?
Yeah.
See,
or the asset.
Yeah,
the asset.
And that is the important part. You talked about your kids coming to work and enjoying doing that, but it gave them something valuable. It gave them a sense of ownership. They understood their dad. They learned how to work. They learned how to work in a place where, my daddy owns this. They were in the presence of greatness, and they didn't even realize it. But they got to they didn't realize it that they had.
I don't think they would see it that way.
Oh man, my daddy owns something, and that for our culture is extremely important to see. See, there's nothing wrong with working for people. There's nothing until you can get to the point to where you can be self-sustaining. I would always encourage people to, even if you want to stay in employment, there's people, we know people who do tap, who just who like a 9 to 5. That's cool.
nothing
There's
wrong with
absolutely
that.
nothing wrong with that, because you
Nothing's
may
wrong
not,
with that.
and that's why it's a calling.
Right.
And some people chosen to be entrepreneurs, and it ain't everybody's advice to be, and people should not be guilted into being entrepreneurs because it's a cool thing to do.
Absolutely.
Because what we laid out this afternoon, that it ain't all roses. It ain't roses it's a hard road to be. You guys sitting here is a hard road. And when we get off this podcast, you guys are going to go back tomorrow and work and work and work and work.
Right.
Go ahead, Tap.
And Steve, one thing that I can say that I can add, being an entrepreneur, I know we're in this era of mental health awareness, but you have to be mentally tough.
Yes.
Come on, Tap.
There are times that are very draining, and it makes you question your vision sometimes.
That's good.
Daryl, I know you've seen days where people see you now, but you've seen days, and I've seen those days where not one person comes in the shop all day.
That's good.
You got them bills to pay still. You got that money to kick back to them
I
sneakers.
children.
I knew I was
You gotta-
doing
you
something
gotta pay Nike.
when we got to
Right.
a point where it was maybe a good 3 years in that we were selling something every day.
Right.
How many years?
3 years
Probably
in.
3 years in.
Wow.
When we had a sale, it could have been some $10 sunglasses,
Right.
it could have been sneakers, don't matter. But a sale, and that sale sometimes would come 7:30, 7:45 at
Yeah.
night, which means you sat in there for
All
9
day.
hours.
Yes. Sometimes 10.
Yeah, you sat in there for 9 hours. And when we got to a point where, okay, we're selling something every day, and then it became, okay, we're hitting this number every day. And now we're to a point where it's like,
Absolutely.
wow, that doesn't even make sense. But
the startup part for people who are wanting to be entrepreneurs, you have to have a level of mental toughness.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be easy. And I know when you watch Instagram and you see all of these people on there and they're talking about overnight success.
Yes, sir.
I forgot who that was that said it took them like 30, 40 years to become an overnight success. Who was that?
That was somebody, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
That's a true statement. Man, these LeBron highlights are good. But I ain't gonna go to
The glory has lifted.
Yeah, we was
The
doing
glory
so
has
good.
lifted.
But see, before we even get going though, but see, we talked about the process, and I don't want to. And let's be clear about this. Let's not cover the goal, but there are goals.
yeah.
See, you talked about 9 hours in your without a sale, but you trusted God, and you kept going, correct?
Yeah.
And in fact, we're sitting in the store right now, correct?
Yes.
As people can probably see.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Wearing Velocity clothes, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That part. Supporting black business. That part. D, I want you to, before we go, you started there, barely getting the sale. I want people to get the gravity of not stopping and keeping going, because you didn't have the answers on. You didn't have the and D, and you smart, but you just had to trust God along the way.
Yeah.
But D, right now, you started where you were, East Baltimore. You trusted God through the process. You went through many obstacles. One sale in 3 years, possibly that you can calculate. Didn't know what the sales was coming from. In 2021 right now, how many locations you got?
4.
Say it again for the people to hear in the back.
4.
4 locations. And I can tell you statistically, let me clap too. I can tell you right now, Concord Mills is the 3rd largest mall to be shopped at in the nation. And where we sitting at right now, D?
Inside Concord Mills Mall.
D, tell everybody right now what all your locations are.
University area of Charlotte, Concord Mills is number 2. Charlotte Premium Outlets is number 3, and we just opened in Charleston, South Carolina, Tanger Outlets.
Man, clap that up right there. And D, tell me how many locations you plan to have.
Well, it will be at least 7. So we're going to do Greensboro and perhaps DC next year, and then Durham or Raleigh.
D, I'm not going to ask you as a millionaire, but I'm not going to say you're not a millionaire. Can I be honest?
No,
I'm all right.
don't do it on tape.
But he a millionaire.
Most
Don't deny it,
most
D.
millionaires won't tell you.
Let's keep
They
it.
won't tell
D,
you though,
I
Steve.
can touch you. What I'm saying is that you don't have to be an athlete to be a millionaire.
Oh,
This is
no.
important for children. Because we know you are D a millionaire. So, and I ain't trying to flex, but I'm just trying to say that to the kids out there, the people out there, to really understand that if you stick with it, because he had $2. See, it ain't that he a millionaire. It's that he had $2 to that.
Yeah.
He didn't stop. And if God called you to something, Tap, he will see it through. D, what kind of, and I want everybody to go around the room, man, before we end with closing remarks, and just tell, if you can encourage somebody, Keegan, Tap, and D, if you could, and I want to start with you, Tap, and we'll go to Keegan, I'm going to go to D. If you can encourage somebody, Tap, about entrepreneurship and getting into it, what was the best advice you would give to them? And y'all, everybody can answer that question.
Mine is short and sweet. Tough times don't last. Tough people do.
That's good. Keegan, what you got, my guy?
I will quote Booker T. Washington: "Don't judge a man by the heights in which he accomplished, but from the depths which he actually overcame adversity." He said he had $2. Now look at him, right? So the grind, keep moving, keep pushing through.
D, what you got, my guy?
Everybody has a purpose. Everyone has a purpose. Grasp your purpose.
That's good.
The Bulls dynasty of the 90s.
That's good.
We
Come
all
on.
know MJ, Scotty. Dennis came
The second stint.
The second.
Horace Grant was
Yeah.
the first one.
John Paxson's job was to not turn the ball over, play reasonable defense, and hit
that
an
three.
open shot.
That's good.
That was his role.
That was his role.
He's got the rings that Mike got.
That's good.
It's a blessing in knowing your
Man,
role.
that's good. Be a star in your role.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I understand that social media makes
Yeah.
it seem like you ought to be, supposed to be, you should be.
Right.
Somebody is an excellent light technician, an excellent sound engineer, excellent camera person,
Tim
an
Jones.
excellent, an excellent, usher. There's a lot of roles that go
Absolutely.
into a successful concert.
Yeah.
If you watch the Last Dance, you'll see that there were people, security guys. There were a lot of people that contributed to MJ being MJ.
That's facts.
And I'm very certain that LeBron, being the current era MJ,
The GOAT.
that he's of the current era. So know your role, embrace it, because if my calling was to be a great second grade teacher, I was going to be the best second grade teacher that anybody ever had.
You're GOAT in that role. Yes, sir.
Man, listen, this has been D.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, this has been
Appreciate you.
Tap. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, Keegan. This has been, it's a pleasure for me to be sitting in a room with kings like you guys. You give me and my generation an opportunity to do better, to be better. You give us an opportunity to grow in certain ways. You gave us an opportunity not to take the lumps you took.
Right.
You're giving us a blueprint, which is the greatest hip-hop album of all time, might I say.
KRS's or
Black
No, Jay-Z, don't do that.
because KRS
Black
Don't do
album.
that. I don't. That's another pod.
too. I didn't
Don't
know
you do that.
which one you were
Don't do
talking
that,
about.
Tap.
But
But
KRS had it first. Then Jay-Z named his album Blueprint too. But we'll talk about that later.
what I
We're
want
kings
to
because we do king stuff.
That's it.
absolutely,
True.
absolutely, and it's important for black men to see black heroism in our community, to see guys to walk the walk, because people who walk in the store D or walk in all your stores, they don't know that we ain't even get into everything, but they don't know the journey that you had to take. They don't know the lumps you had to take. They don't understand that where you had to get to be here. You made a lot of sacrifices. Keegan, you made a lot of Tap. You made a lot of. There's a lot of times you guys want to go have fun.
A lot of times.
Go to
A lot of times you want to go have fun.
volleyball game.
Absolutely.
Or want to go back to corporate America.
Absolutely.
Many Israelites want to go back to Egypt.
You brought us out here for this?
Yes.
Come on, God, you
They didn't
tripping.
want the man. They want to go back to fish in Egypt. Many people wanted to go back.
Man, well, listen, that's almost a word. Man, listen, before we end, thank you. This has been monumental because I think it embodies the spirit of entrepreneurship, not just the money making of it. The money comes.
Absolutely.
Notice we only talked maybe 0.5% about money because it ain't really about the money. Entrepreneurship is about a calling. It's about you empowering people. The spirit of entrepreneurship is in your customer service, Tap.
Absolutely.
It's how you treat your consumers. That's what it is in. See, the dollars will come if you put the purpose first because God is trying to get you to see, sometimes your purpose can be saving somebody from suicide. You don't know how many people you talk to in your chair.
Absolutely.
You don't know how many people you saved
ministry.
from not giving their family generational wealth. That man got his wife because he dressed well in your shop. You don't know. It might have been me. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I think it was you.
I'm gonna keep it up.
It was you. You wasn't implied. It was a dub.
It was a dub. So D, you do a great job with do that. All you guys here do a great job. Man, well, listen, YouTube, The Deep Surface Pod, Instagram, The Deep Surface Pod. We're sponsored by Jerry's Walker and Walker Realty. Guys, listen, and we got another sponsor, but I'm going to talk to you about that on the next podcast. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you for being loyal consumers to the business that we're doing here, guys. And we're much more than a podcast. We pause with a purpose. Tap. Keegan.
One for the books.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, man.
We out.